Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour. I'm your host, Matthew Hawkins, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Ed Carbajal. Ed, how's it going on the East Coast, man?
Pretty good. Shout out to Danny Z Boxing, who dropped into New York over the weekend. I got to hang out with him for a little bit. Danny Z is one half of the Last Round podcast, and they come usually jump on and talk boxing stuff with us. So it was nice to see him. He wants me to get out to y'all's neck of the woods because now both of you have been out here enough that I can't. I literally have to fucking go now. So
Yeah, no, that'll be cool when you can eventually get out here. Um, yeah, so I think we should just get right into it. As much as it's the last thing I want to talk about is more Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler chatter. I feel like we're kind of adding to the by talking about it, we're adding to the
yeah,
BS that we're dealing with right now.
yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like as a ticket holder, like I have a little bit more of a right to be kind of
Mm-hmm.
complaining about the situation at hand. So I'm going to.
Yeah.
Um, I don't obviously right now. I have to assume he's going to fight. The UFC has basically hidden up everything, and screw Ariel Hawani, man. Like I've actually defended him on this show a few times, and I don't have anything animosity towards the guy, but you're not a journalist. You're not even a reporter, dude. If you knew what happened over that weekend, report it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, what are you hiding? Let it be known what you know. Let everybody know. Be a real journalist. Put your neck on the line. Who's going to kick you out of their events? The UFC already hates you. Like, so what? I mean, what? And Conor McGregor is going to cut ties with you, and he's your last big major tie. I mean, you're involved in what's going on in Saudi right now. So you don't need the UFC. You don't even need Conor McGregor. So be a journalist. Tell us what's going on if there really is something, which appears that there is something because there's way too much smoke, you know. But I just, as a ticket holder, man, it pisses me off because
Yeah.
I want to be like, well, okay, is this? At this point, it's on the UFC for me. If he doesn't fight, and it turns out to be the issue that came up a couple weeks ago, then fuck the UFC. Fuck them for refusing to let us know what's happening and just to keep people from refunding their tickets.
Mm-hmm.
And you got people flying in from Ireland, and like it's
Yeah.
not a big deal for me. I'm jumping in a car for 3.5 hours. But you got people that are again, as I talked about last week, making a lifetime trip to watch somebody they want to watch fight. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, card subject to change. I get that shit.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be. It should be. Let us know when it changes. If he's out, let people know. People should have the right to know if he's out. If he's injured, or at least let him know, hey, there's a chance he might not fight. We're working on some backups, but let's make that official. Right now it's up in the air. He's got some issues we're trying to work our way through. I personally am starting to think it's just negotiations. I think it's Connor just strong arming at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I think Connor basically said, no, I want an extra 10 million, 100 million. I want half ownership, whatever the hell he's asking for.
Yeah,
And
he
and
wanted
and
10% last time, yeah.
Yep, and I think the UFC called
Or
his
at one
bluff.
time, yeah.
I think the UFC called his bluff. They got rid of the pay-per-view. They started to get rid of his ads, and then at some point they probably got together immediately when he realized they're calling his bluff because they don't need him as much as the UFC doesn't need. I just saw it's got $16 million gates. You know, they don't need him. They're way too big. They're bigger than Conor McGregor. In 2015, 16, 17, they needed him. That was a chance to
Mm-hmm.
be the push to get to where they're at now. But he pushed them to elevations where they've never seen before, and they don't need him anymore. So yes, they want him because they can gouge money, but at the same time they don't need him. So they're not going to fall for they're not going to be able to fall for his antics. I think that's what's going on. Either that or he got injured and the UFC is just holding on to it. And I don't know. But then again, where's Chandler? Where's this would be a bunch of people in on something that's like something that should be
Well,
public.
the
People
other
are
thing,
placing bets and stuff on
yeah,
this
yeah.
fight.
No, no, I know, but so, and I'm glad you're saying all your concerns as a ticket holder because it's probably not just you feeling that way, especially like you said. I mean, if I didn't have family stuff going on, I'd be somebody that's like rearing to go out there and booking rooms and from the East Coast, which is it's not a car drive, it's a flight, hotel rooms, blah blah blah. So, I mean, there's a lot of people that are probably. So my thing is, I mean, depending on how you handle stuff, like nobody. I fucking forgot about it after we talked about it last week. in and out, got it out of my system. I'm focused. We had a great RIZIN card over the weekend. A lot of great fights over the weekend. One championship, all this good stuff. Plenty of stuff to distract us. And plenty of news today that we're going to get to talk about. And then here comes Helwani with his long ass post to just get people fucking riled up. And it's just like, it's you said it perfectly. If you know, dude, if there's something going on, fucking say it. Just say what you know. Stop stirring people up. Stop fucking. I mean, making Matt sweat and already.
And like I said, I've been to a million of these. I've had main events. I had Fedor fight canceled while I'm walking to the arena. Like I can deal with this crap that happens in the world of fighting, But if it's being held secret for this long when it gets leaked, maybe it wasn't supposed to get leaked, but they just happened to have the press conference, which threw this into total chaos. Without that press conference, nothing would be said right now. Without that press conference, we'd be rolling along, waiting for fight week, and nothing would have been nothing. We wouldn't know any different. So, like, you just don't know. Is this what goes on behind the scenes in the UFC for all these fight cancellations, where they come up and they're like, "Well, nobody's going to take a fight on 3 days' notice." Does that mean that they've known for the last 60 days? Have they known the last 3.5 weeks? Like, I mean, the fact that they're talking about reaching out for people and adding all these fights right now, I'm just losing my mind. We're 18 days away from the event. What now suddenly everybody can take fights on 2 weeks notice? Like that just, it doesn't, it's not going to be that. It's going to be, I hope it doesn't happen. I hope McGregor fights. But if it doesn't happen, that's how it's going to be. It's going to be, hey, these guys took the fight on 6 days notice. Well, they've known about it for a month and a half, though. The truth is they knew about it since last month. But we just didn't tell anybody, so they've been training. They actually got a 5-week camp in for this fight. Not the greatest ever, but, guys that are in shape and don't put on the 100 pounds when they're out of fight weight, they're ready to go. If you're talking Pahea, Yuri, those guys are freaking samurais. Those guys and they'll fight at heavyweight if they have to. I mean, there's no fear in those guys. They'll fight no matter what. So yes, you can always fall back on that crap if you've got a couple warriors like that. But it's so weird to me. It's so weird. And God, if it gets canceled last minute, if this is one of those if this is a 48-hour thing and it turns out that they've known this for a month, I mean, I don't know. Because it's going to be ugly.
Yeah.
Like people literally I paid double what I normally pay. People literally paid 10 times what they normally pay to go to this event. This is not a normal circumstance. This is paying to go to watch the Eagles concert, and then and then all of a sudden some cover band coming out, and then being like, well, our bad, like card subject to change, like, okay. But you've known about it it's criminal if you've known about it for that long. So that could be an interesting thing that comes up, because you might have people asking for refunds that, like I said, it's going to be nuts. It's going to be nuts. Nobody's going to accept the ticket price they paid unless they come out and add like 4 just mega fights. You give me 3-4 new fights and it becomes 2 title fights. We get a stupid BMF title fight, but it's still Chandler and Holloway, and then I've got Yuri and Pahea, and then let's say you throw in Wei Lee versus a returning Joanna or something. I mean, you know what I mean? Like that's then okay, but that's not going to happen. We might get some weird combination. We might get something out of weight. We might get some catch weight fight. But my God, anything else than that's going to tell me that they've known about this for a long time. Because it's too much planning. Too much planning.
That's the thing. That's the thing, though. So it's like Helwani's getting everybody worked up and nervous because of, for whatever reason, he does the shit that he does. But literally on Saturday, they were advertising 303 with Chandler McGregor's face. And we're not, again, the lack of what we're hearing officially should be like, I'm the type of person, like, if shit ain't fucked up until it fucks up, you know what I mean? So if the people that are in the know aren't saying anything, then just chill out. Watch the calendar.
No, I'm with you. There's nothing I can do. I'm counting down the days. Every day that goes by where it's not canceled, we're closer to the fight. So, it is what it is. It's just this, to me, this is going to be a little bit of a behind the scenes situation that we're going to get exposed to some stuff, because if the fight does get canceled, it's going to be for the reason that happened, 17 days ago or whatever it is now. whatever it is, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So there, it's going to be. We're either going to find out this was all Hawani just blowing smoke, or this was Hawani making a deal about something that he knew was bad, but for some reason just didn't want to actually say what it was. And if that turns out that the UFC holds on to this for weeks on end,
Yeah.
without and they can always go, well, we were holding out hope he could fight. I mean, there's always going to be these weird.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
going to be these things, but. And that's what they're going to do. They're business people. They're not going to. They're used car salesmen. They're not going to. They're not going to give up the sale. That's the thing. Like they have the record-breaking gate. They've already been celebrating it. What are they going to do? Go, yeah, well, it never really happened. Like that's not Dana White. That's not the UFC.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just think I think there's the whole combination of everything is really weird. I think it's taken away a lot from International Fight Week and any kind of preparation and anything like that. I just think
Yeah. I mean,
I think it's
on one
go ahead.
on one side they should address it, but on the other, again, just leave it as is. I just want to, because Antoine Willis is chiming in with it. Really unfortunate to see this happen with the 303 card. UK fans are fucked with start times. I mean, the start times are always an issue. I mean, even in the East Coast, man. I mean, I don't like staying up as late as I stay up to watch some of this, especially if the fight's a snoozer. And it's like I hate to use it as the example, but it's the best example. I was fighting to stay up. I mean, I know I messaged Matt. I was at a bar and I came home. I was like, I don't want to watch when Strickland and Costa went at it, because we got the Costa that I was hoping, would not show up. But it is what it is, man. But you never know. That's the thing about it. It is combat sports. It's fighting, and injuries happen. But so if it is an injury and it's something that's concerning, you know what I mean? Like, yes, please say something now so folks can. I mean, we're already at that window where folks can't cancel flights and stuff, like, you know what I mean? Like, you gotta fucking.
No, stuff's starting to get tight.
Yeah.
It's getting a little bit tight here. When you get within 2 weeks, it gets really tight. So
Mhm.
by the end of this weekend, or by Saturday, basically, there needs to be some kind of. I mean, I hope that if it's injury, that's fine. Like we can all get over
It
that.
happens,
We've
yeah.
been a part of it. It's the guy who's coming off his last fight. He snapped his leg in half.
Yeah.
Like I would get it, and I'd go, damn, shame on me. I kind of fell for it. I thought he was going to come back. I've known in
Yeah.
my heart of hearts that probably not great, but I could deal with that. But just to have it be so weird and so up in the air it's the weirdest thing I've ever experienced for one of these fights. I can't recall anything quite like this, where you just heard these rumors for weeks on end. It seems like usually once the rumors started, it was like within 48 hours, you basically got an official announcement, and then, we're looking into a replacement, or this is what we got for you. But this is a weird thing. As far as the fight times in out there for the for the people across the pond, I mean, it sucks. It sucks, but they don't pay for pay-per-views.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean to say that, but for 30 years we've been paying for pay-per-views, and they get to watch it basically for free. Yes, it is in the middle of the night, but
Yeah.
so they the reason the UFC has to get the money is
Yeah. Well, that goes into the question that Willis is asking now. Do you guys think the UFC does too many events? Yes, I do. But again, what Matt just said, they do this to get the money. They're contractually obligated with ESPN to put on, I forget I used to know the number, X many events they have to put on so that ESPN can show them on their horrible streaming service or whatever, as long as they broadcast the events, they have the rights. The UFC has to deliver the events so the ESPN can broadcast them, and that's how they get their money. That's how they increase their value. So
podcast when we started talking about how it starts to water it down. I mean, that was when there was 3 events a month. Now we're up to like almost 4 on average, and and it gets way too much. I think that you end up with UFC King of the Cage cards, and sure, there's some of the headlines are great, but or decent, but the main cards are guys that should be building themselves up. Ed should be interviewing them for Spectation Sports. They shouldn't necessarily all be on UFC prelim cards. I feel like that weakens the regional shows, which it has tremendously. I mean, you get your stars in regional MMA, but there's not deep regional cards like there used to be. Top to bottom, where guys that now they're all in the UFC, or they're fighting, even Bellator. Bellator comes in with, in PFL, they're not signing all the guys that have huge records. So, when you see a guy who's 3-1, or that's a guy that didn't get in the UFC very often. after they got past the send
Yeah.
in your resume kind of thing. Once they kind of recognize that these people actually train, then you usually had to have more fights. That's why you saw guys with Matt Hughes like having 50, 60 fights and
Yeah.
stuff. You had to earn your way. You had to be the tough dude to get into the UFC
Yeah.
because there was select spots. Now it just seems like it's pretty much, if you're decent, you're getting into the UFC at this point. Maybe that's
Yeah.
maybe that's an understatement.
And then they usually that's when we start to see releases of people towards the end of the summer, so they can make way for all the Contender Series guys that are going to come in from that they formed out of the regionals. But it is what it is. It's the nature of the beast now. It wasn't always that way, but that's the nature of the beast now. But speaking of signees, talking about folks signing with the UFC with decent records, coming out of the East, RIZIN 47, spectacular event. I couldn't stay up to watch it. I had to watch it Sunday in between getting errands done and meeting up with Danny. But I saw the highlights. I saw the results. I obviously get the press releases, and so the UFC, they announced at the RIZIN event, and I'm surprised like the UFC is not jumping on this. This is where I question their connection to which fans are they connecting to. But they signed Kai Asakara over the weekend. It was announced at RIZIN in the ring. He announced it, and he said, "Look, I expect them to announce it soon." And here we are. It's 3 days after for them, and they haven't said anything. Like, there's no big because he announced it. The news made ESPN because obviously it's signing with the promotion that they broadcast, and the guys. Composer's been sharing highlights. A lot of folks been sharing highlights of what Kai Asakara brings to the table. It seems like they're just going to throw him on a card one day and not market him at all, which is kind of speaking to what you were just saying about the way they bring guys in now. Now it's like this is somebody that got some fire behind him, and the UFC still hasn't addressed it yet. So who knows? Maybe they have bigger things to deal with. I'm not going to be a negative Nancy like Helwani and try to make it seem like that 303 thing is distracting them. But I mean, I thought that was major news coming out of that event, especially I like who else they got from there. Manel Cape. I'm trying to think who else. There's isn't there like a 185er that they signed that I'm still for some reason I can't think of his name.
180. Well, I mean, Yuri came from there.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah, the event was fun. The Asakura thing was kind of a surprise, like you said, him announcing it there. I stayed up till the first intermission. I ordered the pay-per-view. It gave me a 14-day replay, so I woke up the next day, finished watching the card. Wasn't the worst thing in the world to not throw off my entire schedule, but the UFC. The thing that really kind of throws me off on this situation is where apparently the rumor is they're looking for a top 5 opponent for him, and I just don't. I don't quite get why they do this with certain people. I don't know why. I mean, the reality is they want to try to supercharge him to get him up there because they don't want to have Derek Lewis having to headline a card in South Korea. Like that's where this is going. Like that's the only reason. I mean, I just feel like that's what this is about. This is about for the Asian markets for them to have a headliner and let's get this guy, let's throw him to the wolves instead of giving him some lower level guy that he can get a highlight reel KO off of and build some momentum. I mean, I don't know who are we giving him top 5. I mean, who we're talking Aljamain 135. So who are we talking? We're talking some friggin' killers here. Peter Yan. We're gonna do Peter Yan versus him in his first fight. So if Peter Yan waxes him, he's done. And it's just like that's my thing. Like these guys are given such little slack. I feel like when they come from these other promotions, and I'm not saying to baby them. Maybe they learned their lesson with Crow Cop because that's what they did with him, and it cost them big time when he came over from Pride. The first time.
Well, the record has shown that's kind of what that fits in line with this question too. The record has shown when guys come over from Pride, more often than not, they don't. I think I'm phrasing that wrong, but I've been disappointed with Pride crossovers when it happened back then versus, it's a different, the sport has evolved now. So I'm expecting, I always root for them, put it that way. I always root for them to bring that same energy. But I mean, that's definitely something that I think if UFC jitters are a thing and, switching from fighting into a ring to a cage, the travel and everything else that they might throw on top of the media obligation and, all the other stuff that they throw on top of what they haven't dealt with before. I mean, maybe not the Saitama Super Arena, just some other arena. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like it's a lot of culture shock for somebody to change animals like that. But I don't know.
Well, like looking at the rankings here, right? Bantamweight. Kyle Sakura, exciting fighter, 21-4. Sean O'Malley, maybe if they get into a firefight, he's able to land a big shot on Sean O'Malley, but I'd probably pick O'Malley to beat him. Dashvili, I'm not picking anybody on the planet to beat that guy right now.
Yeah.
Corey Sandhagen, I mean, I like Asakura, but I'm taking Sandhagen in that fight.
Yeah.
Peter Yan, perhaps his best matchup because Yan's been on a downslide, but he only lost to the guys that I just mentioned that I thought would all beat Asakura. So maybe not. Maybe Yan, you know what I mean? Like that's Cejudo. I probably would lean Cejudo. And I'm a Asakura kind of patchy mix. Jose Aldo. I mean, this isn't the UFC. I guess this is
in general.
Aldo
yeah.
mix. Marlon Vera. Maybe Marlon Vera would be the fight to make. He's fighting Figueiredo though. That's going to be a hell of a fight. But I don't know. I would rather him fight a 12th ranked guy and get a nice win and get established than, hey, here's a former champion and who could derail you real quick. It just seems like that's the way.
It's definitely what they do.
It's the old WWF style of let's make Dusty Rhodes wear polka dots. Let's make mockeries of everybody else we bring in from all the other territories.
Well, I feel like they always want to do that too, though. They always kind of like even when you look at what they did with MVP against Kevin Holland. Like Kevin Holland is even though he was coming off of losses and they keep throwing that poor kid to the wolves. I mean, granted, he picked up a win recently, but before that, he was just he was getting his money doing what they asked of him, and with fighting Kamzat, but there was a round with the Holland fight for MVP that it looked like it was going Holland's way. When you put it, not many people have been able to put MVP on the ground the way Holland did and control him for as long as they did. So to Holland's credit, I think if anything, he evolved off of that fight too. But to your point, I think they bring in guys to they want them to come in and look bad, especially if they're well known from another promotion.
And I don't want him fighting contender series guys and stuff like that. I'm not looking for like that kind of thing. I mean, I'd like to see him fight an established fighter, but somebody doesn't have to be necessarily, coming off a championship fight. The MVP Chandler, even Eddie Alvarez, super rush to the top. I understand that more because of their age. Asakura coming in his prime, in his late 20s. To me, like there's not a big hurry there. Like, why do we need to like? I always feel like it's like we just want to watch him get crushed and then send him back to RIZIN to hurt them. To hurt their champion. And I mean, them coming out eventually saying they don't want to sign. I mean, the UFC apparently doesn't want to re-sign Horiguchi, which is mind-numbing to me. But he'll be fun to watch. Do I think he's going to be a world champion? I don't. I think he's too much of a street fight brawler to be a world champion. But I think he can put on some really, really good fights. And,
fun fights, you put him in the right size cage, you can maybe put on some good fun fights.
Yeah, there you go. And
speaking of Horiguchi, he avenged the loss this week at RIZIN 47-2 against Sergio Pettis. To be honest with you, I kind of saw that exact way of winning coming just based on the last fight. I would have preferred he got a finish, but I mean, he kind of had Pettis. He kind of had his number until Pettis threw that Hail Mary spinning back fist and knocked him out. So, I mean, I wasn't surprised with the result of that. I don't know about you, but I kind of expected that to happen.
No, and as the fight developed, it became more clear to me that that's exactly what he should be doing because it was a must-win for him. You can't give away that fight late like the last fight that happened. It would be catastrophic to his career. It'd be catastrophic to everything. I feel like if they did a trilogy fight, you would see a different everything. I think you
Hmm.
would see more chances being taken and stuff like that. Not that we need to see it really, because I do feel like Horiguchi's better because he's dominated all but 2 seconds of almost 10 rounds. Uh, but um, but yeah, I mean, I'm glad. There's a part of me that's glad the UFC doesn't want to re-sign him, just for the simple fact that he can stay there and headline their cards and give me
Hmm.
a reason to keep buying pay-per-views and watching 125-pound fighters. I mean,
Yeah.
I was on this show a couple years ago saying, just get rid of the division. I'm over it. They're a bunch of small dudes who,
Yeah. I
you know,
never. I
I
always
know
liked
you
it.
weren't. I
Yeah.
know you weren't. I'm saying myself. And that's still not my favorite division.
Hmm.
But there's now it's developed, and it for me in the hindsight it ended up being the Mighty Mouse Johnson effect. Like he killed the division so much that he was beating guys, and I was thinking the guys he was beating were scrubs because he was doing it over and over again. It's kind of how you're gonna look back at the GSP era a little bit. GSP beat all these guys, and then you look
Hmm.
back and go, well, was Dan Hardy that good? And you go, well, yeah, he was pretty damn good, but GSP just destroyed him, so you kind of lose that. Koscheck, was Koscheck good? Koscheck was a damn good fighter. Was he always fun to watch? No, absolutely not. Was he was he a fan favorite? No, but he was a good fighter, but these guys get just worked over by
Hmm.
a once in a generation divisional champion, and it changes how things go. So Mighty Mouse leaves, goes to one, and then
Hmm.
all of a sudden it was like, oh, here's Figueiredo, here's Moreno, you know, uh,
Well, I
Horiguchi
mean,
thrived in Japan then, and stuff like in Bellator, so
yeah.
it took the kind of the
Well,
guy
it's
getting
a
out of the way.
testament. It's a testament to how good Mighty Mouse was, and now it's kind of like now you get, but now you get to see how good other guys are and can be, and we've seen so many fun fights. I mean, I'm a Moreno stan. I'm always, I mean, that guy. If that, I know he's taking a break from fighting now, but as soon as he comes back, I mean, I'm the first one to
Of course.
start slapping my hands together. Um, but the other news for RIZIN before we move on to the news that came out today. Um, and it kind of correlates with something I just saw posted on the social media before we started recording that I want to kind of try to mix into this one statement about what RIZIN is doing. They announced today that they're going to be doing like crossover with KSW, which I think is awesome, because I mean it's almost like if the UFC is supposed to be this monster that nobody can beat, but everyone else that's out there that has a foothold in the sport starts working together versus against the guy that doesn't want to work with anybody, then you get a really cool AEW WWE thing going on. I love. Competition is good for business, and to me that makes the sport and the business side both more exciting to watch. I don't know what I mean. I'm sure you're on board with KSW Rising crossovers.
Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, everybody would get along and fighters would
Hmm.
fight everybody on the planet, and we would get to see guys
Hmm.
fighting in different kinds of arenas and different kinds of rings and cages. And um, I mean, to me, there was a time we all said we just want the UFC to take over. We
Yeah.
want them to take over and bring it, globalize it, and let's do it, and everybody will fight each other. Reality is that doesn't happen because money gets involved, and when
Yeah.
money gets involved, you end up with
Yeah. I'm glad you said
boxing
that.
style cards. This is while money's involved here, this is
Yeah.
more about the true, at least it gives the impression that this is
Yeah.
about fighters getting some freedom to fight around,
Yeah.
promoters getting a chance to work together, and all it should do is stack cards. There's no
So
reason why this doesn't help these promotions to get back
exactly.
to where they were before
Yeah.
UFC was like taking the fighters from the.
Yeah.
This is kind of like the regionals getting together and going, okay, well, we're just gonna be a super regional then. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like that, and that's it's the.
So the
Go ahead.
boxing, you mixed it up with boxing. I mean, Fight Hook News just right before I just saw a post from Fight Hook News. I'm not sure how their sources are, but they put a post up, and I've been mentioning him a lot. Turkey Al I always mess up his like Al Sheikh. They put up a post that Saudi Arabia's Turkey Al Sheikh is looking to buy Matchroom, Top Rank, PBC, Golden Boy, Queensberry Promotions to create a big boxing league under one umbrella, like a UFC model that could be worth to $5 billion, about $5 billion to establish, but it would change the landscape of boxing. And I've been saying it ever since I've been messing up Turkey's name. Like that guy could save combat sports. I even talked about it with Danny when he was out this weekend. He agreed with me because of the stuff that guy just seems to make it happen. Because again, like you said, if money's the issue and your pockets are as deep as the planet, then like brother, this guy, if he can do that if he does that with boxing and starts moving into doing like again, I think if he made Riyadh MMA, not only would people tune in during Riyadh season for these super fights that you could make, he probably can afford to get people out of contracts or free agents, the big name free agents to all fight under one banner there. I wouldn't be so like he could make, I guarantee you he could make Ngannou, John Jones happen if things were that happened in their personal lives with the Jones's injury and Ngannou's personal situation where he lost his kid and stuff like that. But if in the perfect world, these guys like he could make the fight happen once because he's already got the UFC bending to his will to hold cards there and stuff like that. And if that's true, if what Fight Hook News posted is true, then I think that guy can save combat sports and make it fun again and not as I don't know, TikTok-y or whatever the fuck is wrong with it now.
I think it could be good for boxing.
Mm-hmm.
My issue is, can you be? You say that people would watch John Jones and Ngannou. I question how many people watch that fight at 2 p.m. Pacific time.
Oh, the time, yeah.
You know what I mean? The time change, and I don't know if he's going to be like, if he works out a deal with the promoters, like if he's in it, if all this comes together, right, and the promoters are still allowed to put on events in the States under this umbrella of Saudi Arabia, I don't know how that works. With international, all the politics involved in that is all I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that would necessarily work, or if there's any problems at all with it. Maybe it's just, dude, you can come promote here and. So, because my thing is, I don't know if without the United States, I don't know how super successful financially. Obviously, the dude can put fights on and he can make money in his country and some of that parts of the region. And for boxing, it's a little different because boxing is I don't know. I feel like it's a little bit different. I don't know if boxing so much relies on all pay-per-view buys in the U.S. Obviously, when Mayweather fights and stuff, yes, but over there they get all the there's not a bunch of all the big fighters in the heavyweights that are fighting over there are all European, so they can get their buys and their money through that market and stuff. Tyson Fury, Joshua. I mean, you ask the average person down the street, nobody's going to know who Anthony Joshua is in the United States. I mean, that's just being honest. Maybe Tyson Fury, because you've heard the name. Alexander Usyk, I would say that I'd have a hard time finding somebody that would just be like, yeah, I know who that is. Or like could tell me what he is or what he looks like, anything like that. Outside of my fight bubble, you know what I mean? Just walking into the grocery store, that I don't know if the average teller is going to have any idea who these people are. Again, with MMA, that's where it throws it off. I don't know how that works. If you can promote events in the U.S. and you can have, Fight Night Riyadh. I don't,
Yeah, no, you're right.
I don't want to say anything. I don't know if any of these things have religious things, so I don't want to.
But
be careful how I say it. But
that's a good point though about the timing though. If anything, I mean, not as much as those events seem to trend when after they happen. I don't think they're doing numbers like you said. The timing counts for a lot, especially for sports fans in the U.S. Man, you got to put the shit on when we're not fucking trying to make our money. You know what I mean? Like we have to be able
for
to
hardcores like us who love that time and old heads like us who are like, give me that fight at 5 p.m. It'll be fine for us, and we'll love it because like you the rest of your night you can go do whatever you want to do, or you can go to bed. But a 23-year-old on especially like some of these events are on Fridays and stuff, so it's just weird some of that stuff that they'd have to clear out if they want to try to sell. I think, like I said, I don't know why you wouldn't I don't know why you couldn't use their promoter's license for all these companies that come together under his wing, because I imagine he's not going to get rid of all these promoters. I would think that there would still be a some kind of council or something
Yeah.
like that to
Yeah.
keep this going. And those guys' promoters license are good in California or Nevada or wherever Eddie Hearn or all these guys are available. So I don't know. It would be fun to see. I like the idea of it, but I feel like we saw it with the UFC, and maybe they've soured me to some of it in a sense.
Mm,
Or maybe I'm
yeah.
spoiled because we did get a lot of great fights, but it's never quite as good as it perhaps could be, or maybe it's just
Yeah.
in our minds how it should be, But
Yeah.
I like the idea. Did you happen to see the news? And I'm assuming it's real because I've seen it multiple times now. Is Perry and Jake Paul boxing on July
That
20th?
popped up just as we started recording. I haven't seen anything official yet. And Jake Paul in his fashion. Actually, because I get their MVP's press releases. Let me check that really quick.
I
See if
haven't seen anything from anybody. I'd be like, okay,
yeah, it's
yeah.
nothing. Yeah, no, nothing has. Nothing official has been. I mean, it's Happy Punch, which I think is affiliated with Jake Paul in some sense, is the one that posted it. But I mean, we didn't plan on talking about that. But I mean, my first reaction is I wouldn't mind it. I wouldn't mind it. It'd be fun. I mean, it'd be fun.
It's fun. I think it's crazy, if I'm being honest, that BKFC is letting him do it. I don't know. I mean, maybe he doesn't lose. If Jake Paul flatlines Mike Perry,
yeah,
I will never look at him the same.
yeah.
Now Woodley. Okay, he's an older fighter. He's more of a wrestler. He had a big punch.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Askren wasn't
Another
even training
wrestler
for the fight.
Yeah.
Probably couldn't knock out my aunt. Well, Anderson Silva, he's 50. He gets dropped. Like, I can make excuses for all that stuff, and it's not even really excuses, it's reasons why Jake Paul was able to handle them. If he goes out there and beats Mike Perry, who right now is a superstar,
yeah.
I don't see where this does. I hope he's making enough money in this fight where if he loses it, he gets knocked out bad, because I think it takes a lot of momentum away.
Yeah,
I think it takes.
I think we're supposed to get official more details tomorrow at Wednesday, according to the stuff that Jake Paul is putting out there. But I mean, I just checked. There's no. I haven't gotten any new press releases from MVP, which is Most Valuable Promotions. That's Jake Paul's thing. But and then the thing about what you said, Feldman is obviously a risk taker. I feel maybe he's got faith in Perry that go light this kid up, and I'll see you for the next. I'll see you when you're ready to take the gloves off.
If he wins, if he wins, I feel like not a whole lot changes, other than we get a couple days of social media trash talking about him winning. He goes back to BKFC and he does the same thing there. If he loses, I feel like maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm being over dramatic, but I just feel like it's not. I won't be able to look at him the same, because right now Mark Perry is a scary man who is just destroying people. If he goes out there and loses to a quote unquote YouTube boxer, who's obviously more of a boxer now, it's just not going to look great to me. If he loses a close decision, okay, probably no harm, no foul. But if he gets knocked out, then it's going to be a change.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Somebody rang my doorbell, so the dog's losing her mind right now.
Do you need to get it? All right. So the last bit of news we got to talk about that came out today. I mean, it's been a pretty eventful week so far. Invicta FC finally, not only do they have a broadcast home for the rest of the year, but they've got 5 events scheduled. So Invicta FC, a lot of folks were like speculating, scratching their head, what's going on with them. They're coming back. They've got events, and they've got a broadcast home, which is CBS Sports. Now, I took it one of two ways. First, I'm glad that they're on CBS Sports. I'm glad that they're putting on events, and I'm glad that it's on a platform that I hope can get more eyeballs on them. However, CBS Sports is part of the whole Paramount Global, the fiasco that lost Bellator, lost Showtime Boxing, and it makes me wonder. Again, it's only for 5 events, though. It is only for these 5 events for folks that didn't read into all the news that came out. So I think it's good for Invicta that it's 5 events, but if one of those events, which especially there's one that's to be announced for, it's in September, but they don't have the exact date for that one yet. If one of those events just happens to get thrown on regular CBS, and all these households get to watch Invicta FC, might be for the first time for some people. I'll never forget. I showed my friend who you met, my buddy Jeff in Brooklyn. One time, I was at his place. I brought my little Fire Stick or whatever, plugged it in so we could watch my Fight Pass off my phone. And he had watched the Invicta card with me, and he said, "Wow, I've never seen anything like this. I've liked every single fight on this card, and I don't really watch, you know." So he's like a casual that when he first saw Invicta, he was like, "Where is this at?" And I told him it was on Fight. At the time, they were on Fight Pass, and he was like, "Man, this shit should be on regular TV." That was his reaction to it. So I'm hoping that happens. Number one, with these fights on CBS, and because Bob Backish, who's I say is responsible for the fall of Bellator and Showtime Boxing, is, you know, they let him go. He stepped down, or was asked to step down in April, so he's gone. So maybe the folks that are left over there, the folks running the show there, are saying, "Hey, we fucked up. We gotta get some live sports back. Let's try with Invicta." So I don't know. I don't know how you reacted to the news, but that was my reaction.
I'm happy Invicta still exists. I'm glad they got some kind of platform. I excuse me. I don't. I mean, how I feel like this is promotion like number 12 that's been on CBS Sports Network, and I don't know if any of them have turned out well. Like, so,
Yeah.
I maybe it's been a stepping stone for a lot of people, which I guess in a sense it has, but I don't know if that's the future. It doesn't feel like the future to me. The future feels like more YouTube than this kind of thing. So
No.
I, you know, but if it brings any money in,
Mhm.
if CBS Sports is giving them any money that helps them keep the doors open and keeps fights going, and
Mhm.
then I'm all for it. So um, we'll see what happens, but I don't, I don't think we're gonna see. The views are not gonna be astronomical. I mean, I think we're gonna be talking like 80, 90,000,
Yeah.
maybe. That kind of thing. That channel doesn't pull crazy numbers. I feel like Bellator was in the low 100,000s, or whoever the heck was on there at some time. I think Bellator was. I lost track.
Yeah,
Bellator was
Bellator
on
was briefly
19
on
different
there.
channels,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we'll see. But like I said, anything that works best to help that promotion going, because everything Shannon Knapp's done there has been great.
Yeah.
I loved going to the events. I
The
think,
laundry list of great female fighters that have come out of there that fought everywhere. You know, Chris Cyborg, Amanda Nunes. It's just it throws down. You know, you could go down. We could do a whole other hour talking about how many great
I mean, I'll
women
go
from
so far
Boston.
as to say I wish the UFC would just buy Invicta and keep Invicta and make it their women's fighting league. You know, and only put the
They certainly
champions
had a
at,
chance to. Yeah.
and then put the champions on the pay-per-view cards and stuff like that. You could cross it over at that point. You could have
Mm-hmm.
Invicta, but UFC Invicta. Call it whatever. I don't care what kind of combination of a name you come up with. But to me,
Mm-hmm.
that would make the most sense. Have a women's league that is dominant, and it's not. It wouldn't be like starting like the WNBA or something that struggled for years and years.
Mm-hmm.
You have people that are headlining UFC cards that are women that could easily, if they were on Invicta card, would headline it too. I think people would still watch it, especially if you put it on ESPN, ESPN Plus, all that stuff. I don't have any reason to believe that people wouldn't tune in. Would the numbers be huge? I think they'd be better than what they're going to get on CBS Sports.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would be a way to keep everybody else happy. It we talked about UFC putting on too many events. It would take away some of their fighters and put it onto another platform of events. Obviously, yes, it's more events, but it's not. It's the women's division. I don't feel like they get enough fights as it is to really keep the divisions rolling as they properly should be. But at the same time, there's some fights you just can't. If you overload cards with it, the typical UFC crowd is not always appreciative of massive women's
Mm-hmm.
fights on cards. That's just the reality of it.
Mm-hmm.
The top
That's
level's
true.
great, but if you put three or four or five of those fights on a card, it people I think will tune out in a sense, unless you're talking the top, the Shevchenkos and the Whaleys and the top Nunez's, Cyborgs. You start talking the top, you can put 10 of them on a card and everybody will go crazy. But for the most part, until people are familiar with these female fighters, I think that it's harder sell. So I don't know. Anything that gets them on TV, anything that allows me to watch it, I'm happy with. So we'll see how it goes. I wish them all the best. I was hoping for maybe something different or something new, but hey,
Yeah,
maybe,
I was hoping for Amazon Prime just because I've been saying that for a while, and it's like it's women Amazon, like you could market the whole thing, like you know what I mean, like there's something they could do there, but
it seems like
yeah.
these companies want to jump in, but they're kind of gun shy. I don't know what these people are asking for.
You
I
would
don't
think
know.
at this point now, with what you see what the UFC does and how they're all over the fucking place, you would think now they would just say, we need combat sports. We need something that looks like that. You would think they'd be fighting hand over fist for these promotions that are looking for some sort of network or streaming service to be on, but I don't
You
know.
think, but things happen, and
Hmm.
I don't know. Like you said, I don't know the politics going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. Yeah.
UFC might be telling them, no, you don't go to Prime. You don't go to Prime. That's going to help promote one too much. We don't want to bring any more eyes to that product. They're not on the
Yeah.
UFC team. I don't. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows exactly what goes down? But they're not on Fight Pass either. So that's kind of the baffling thing of all this to me, um, is that they're just not there. But
Yeah.
who knows? Maybe it just doesn't work financially for everybody. Uh,
Mm.
Lots to talk about, man. Good week of news. Last couple of weeks, we haven't really had events to talk about, but so much. But seems like stuff's popping up left and right. So I think that's about all I got. You got anything else? Any other news you want to talk about?
No,
Or
I mean we actually talked more about like the Jake Paul thing and the other stuff. That
the
wasn't.
Cannoneer stoppage. We never really
Oh
got
yeah,
into
we were going to
that.
get into that, but
But
quickly, I mean, just briefly, I'll say, Jason Herzog is of all the referees out there, I would say the lowest rate of error. He's one of them, and you got to remember the perspective. I always think about what Sean Wheelock says when it talks about officials and judges, and that includes refs too. The point of your point, the point of view of that person is not what we're seeing at home. Number one, and number two, if you watch there, I mean, one of the things that refs look for is if you show up and turn your back, like so to the guy that's fighting you, then if I'm the third man in the cage, and I see that from my point of view, it looks like the guy. It looks like you're losing badly, and I have to jump in. So people make mistakes. I don't think anyone's hanging Herzog out to dry that I've seen anyway. But I mute a lot of dickheads too on on X. So I mean, I don't fault him for the stoppage, but I was kind of like, man, you kind of little too quick to pull the trigger.
I'll let you have the say on that. I don't disagree with anything you just said. So let's just end it there. Fans can check out the show at Combat Hour on Twitter, Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour on Instagram. Follow myself, Matthew Hawkins, at MMAHawk21 on Twitter and Instagram. Follow Ed at Carbazol on Twitter, Carbeerzol on Instagram, and Old Head Carb on Twitch. Thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks for the questions, and talk to you next week.
Peace.